All right, Eli, you are unmuted. I've muted everybody else. I'm going to mute myself.
All right. I'm going to echo if I don't mute that one. Eli, can you see me?
I can see you.
Excellent. So Eli, thanks for joining us. Thanks for agreeing to be number one. And those of you joining us for the club, if you can send your chats, would be awesome to answer those when we hit the Q&A portion.
Has joined.
One of the things I wanted to start with was basically ask you what inspired you to start the whole Starman comic book series, which I've discussed earlier. It seems like you've done it more like a TV series. So I guess if we got any members of the club or anyone in the area who might be in the industry who might want to option it, feel free to contact them afterwards, and maybe we can see it made into a series. Yeah, Netflix always needs content, right?
Yeah, they sure do, especially with everyone staying at home. So real quick, for those of you guys who I haven't already met previously, my name is Eli Burton. I am the creator of the Adventures of Starman series, also the president and founder of the Tesla Owners Club, My Tesla Adventure, non-regional because we like to get out there and have fun with all of you. So to Dennis's question about how the Adventures of Starman came to be, it was the most insane, stupidest thing most financially irresponsible thing I have ever done in my entire life. That's probably even more so than buying a Tesla Model S 75D fully loaded at 27 years old. So what happened was I watched the launch, which so did a lot of you guys, and after seeing it, I'm not a super emotional person. I think my ex-wife would describe me as emotionally unavailable. But watching that launch, I was brought to tears because it was the first time in my life as a really huge space fan, as a kid who grew up looking back at all the stuff we did as Apollo, that I finally saw and truly believed that we were actually going to finally do it, that we were going to finally actually get back to the moon, that we're actually going to go to Mars. And the things that, science fiction writers have been dreaming of for a century finally had a chance of being happen because we have this insane guy, Elon Musk, who is going to drive the vision and drive the mission himself. So in the 5 days following the launch, it's all I could think about. It was burned in my brain. It was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. And I went to one of my favorite bars with my best friend, and we were sitting there having old fashions, and I'm just going on and on about it. And I'm like, man, Starman is the makings of a real life superhero. He's just missing his very own comic universe. So, he looked me dead in the face and said, well, then you need to go make it. So quite literally 24 hours later, I had already hired my lead artist and the project was underway.
Excellent. So is it, how many people does it take to produce and make an episode, and how far ahead do you have the series written?
So that process has definitely evolved. When I started, I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea how many people it would take. I started with just an illustrator who was also a colorist, and I thought I had all that I needed. Well, as I learned very quickly that no, it takes quite a bit more than that. So at this point in time, the team has a illustrator who actually does all of the drawings in pen and ink. So they're actually the raw black and white art is all hand drawn. And when I meet up with him in person next, I'm actually going to have all of the art put in my safe of originals. So that's going to be really cool that eventually I'll do some giveaway stuff with in the future. So there's an illustrator, there's a digital colorist. So the process that it goes through is his hand-drawn black and white inked images get scanned in super high resolution, sent to a digital colorist who then runs it through a flatter, which I don't even know what they do, to be honest, but it's part of the coloring process. They color it. Then ultimately it goes back to me, and towards the end of the project, we get a letterer involved because the dialogue and the word bubbles that you see, that's another specialty in its own. And then there's also a story writer and then myself. So there's actually a team of 5 of us now working on this.
And how far ahead do you have it written? I mean, we know that one of the things that spurred our conversation on this and was the fact that, I pre-purchased, along with a few of your other fans, episode 3, which you had on the site, and I'm like, I'm I'm waiting about this thing, and I'm like, you know what? People around the club might want to hear about this. So, we know that episode 3 is coming out, and I've talked about the fact that you've got 4 ready. Does that mean you've got episode 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 ready, or do you have it up to 6, or where are we actually in this whole process?
So it's kind of varied. So episode 2, actually, we had the entire thing written before we started. We ended up making some changes because there were some things that were going to happen that we realized Elon may not have been a fan of. And since this includes his companies, we decided to make some story edits. Episode 3, though, we knew where we were starting and we knew where we were ending, but how we got there along the way, we actually only stayed about 2 or 3 pages ahead of the illustrator the entire time. It was absolutely terrifying. It's like learning how to drive while going 100 miles an hour down the freeway. But it came out, episode 3 came out exceptionally well. Episode 4, which, sorry guys, is actually part 2 to episode 3. Episode 3 is going to end on a cliffhanger that you guys are going to hate me for. But episode 4 is going to come out very quickly after it. It's going to come out only 2 months after you even get your copy of episode 3. So I won't make you guys wait forever. Now, episode 5, I'm already well into writing. I'm going to be writing episode 5 myself. Episode 6, we actually just figured out the plot line, because here's one of the things that we're doing with this universe that's different than a lot of most content, most science fiction, is that we are really working hard to keep what is in this story aligning very heavily with what's happening in real life. So one of the things we've been waiting for is we want to do an episode that really focuses on the future moon mission and Starship. But before we do that, we want to make sure Elon has somewhat finalized the design so we don't create this tribute to a rocket that ends up looking like something else entirely when it actually goes into production. So we're getting pretty confident about where Elon's headed and where SpaceX is headed with Starship. So in 2021, you guys are going to see a episode dedicated to the future moon mission that's coming.
Awesome. So obviously today's Starship SN5 mission must have been something that's really exciting, for not just for me, but obviously for you, because you seem to be very focused on space. So tell us what you felt when you saw that grain silo in Texas suddenly lift up, and then not only lift up, but land safely with the world's smallest feet.
It was wonderful to watch it take off, but I'm not going to lie. My favorite part of watching that live stream was Tim Dodd's reaction. He fell over in his chair, geeking out when the little landing legs open. I mean, he was almost crying. It was awesome. So his energy made watching that little demo flight even more exciting. And if you guys don't already follow Tim Dodd, Everyday Astronaut, he's incredible. His coverage of space and SpaceX and everything going on there is second to none. I can't recommend enough to check him out. And also, interestingly, he actually is in episode 3 of the Adventures of Starman.
Awesome. Well, that's a great tie-in to the episode. So, obviously this is the club, the Orange County Club, and you have ties to the OC with your 714 number and everything. Just a little bit of tell us a little bit about your experiences with a car. So I know that now you've got a Raven that has the funkiest paint job. I mean, it's paint, right? That's on it. That's kind of like, seems like moon dust, right? I mean, I think Starship is your plate. So tell us about what your experiences with Tesla. Like, you started off with your 75 and then you go to the Raven afterwards, or was there something in between, or? Yeah,
so I'm actually approaching my 3-year anniversary of having my first Tesla. It'll be on August 11th, actually. So I'd first got to test drive a Tesla in 2015. And before even stamping on the pedal to find out how amazing electric torque was, I got to try Autopilot 1.0. And I will never forget hitting that lever, hearing the ding, and all of a sudden the car was locked onto the road like it was on rails. I mean, Autopilot 1 really was phenomenal. It was ahead of its time. And even how good Autopilot 1 just stays directly centered in the lane, even though I would argue AP 3.0 in almost every other way is better, AP 1 is still better at just getting in the lane and staying dead center. So I got to experience that, and immediately I was like, okay, this is the future, and it's already here. I have to have one. It took me a couple years after that of literally working my face off with only one purpose, which was to make enough money to be able to afford a payment on a Tesla. That in June of 2017, I ordered my very first Tesla. It was a Model S. Model 3 wasn't out at the time. It was still a ways off. but I got the 75D. I made the choice to go 75D, but get all the technology upgrades, all the perks, because I realized that if you're going to have a Tesla, you want all of that. You want autopilot, you want full self-driving, you want biodefense mode, like you want all the tech that makes Tesla a Tesla. So got my 75D, absolutely loved it. Now that I look back on it, the amount of charging that I had to do was insane compared to now having the Raven. But I didn't care. It was such an amazing experience having that car. And to be honest, even though I had to do all this charging, I would always end up with a completely full battery because I'd spend hours past my plug out time talking to other owners at the supercharger. And you guys know what's up. I mean, it still happens today. Definitely a little bit less so because there's a lot more 3 and Y owners who aren't necessarily fans of the brand. They're now just like, it's a great car, so they bought it. But back then, every Tesla owner pretty much was a fan. Like 8 or 9 out of 10 was a fan. So the 2017 to 2018 was really awesome. But then jumping forward to 2019, so I'd always wanted the P100D, but in 2017 when I got my Model S, so my 75D, the P100D cost like $175,000 before tax. Like that was just way out of my price range. But then in May 2019, as you guys remember, Tesla dropped the Raven Performance Model S, and it was coming in at, I think with everything, even with autopilot, all the options, it was coming in at like $105,000, which was only $4K more than my 75D from 3 years ago. So within like 24 hours of that announcement, I figured out how to make the numbers of it work, and I ordered my Raven. Funny enough, funny story, I actually ordered 2 of them. I ordered one with a delivery location to Fremont and one to my local store in Rockland because I wanted to be the first person to take delivery. And Tesla had the policy at the time that you could just cancel your order, your order with no punishment. You'd get the $1,000 back. So I took delivery of the one that arrived first, which funny enough was not the one at the factory. The one that arrived first was the one at my home store, which is like 3 hours from the factory. But anyway, yeah, to your question, the experience having the Raven, the charge speed and the performance on the Performance Raven Model S is absolutely bananas. And if you guys have not yet been in a launch of a Raven P100D or even a previous P100D, and you know anyone that has one, or if you're ever in the same city, hit me up. I would love to take you out. It is a face-melting, like soul-crushing, but in a really good way experience.
Awesome. So, like I told everybody, I'm planning on keeping the my portion of it short. Was there anything else that we haven't covered that you want to share with everybody before we open it up for club members and our distinguished guests to ask you questions from the group here?
I'm very excited for Q&A. For everybody who's on this that did pre-order episode 3, so it is done tonight. We should officially be signed off and printing tomorrow. So that actually starts the countdown clock to when I can ship your episode. As soon as I have an update from the printers on when it'll be done and when it'll get here, I'll let you guys know via email. But for anybody that pre-ordered Operation Darkstone, thank you guys so much. That was extremely helpful in giving me the cash I needed to actually have it printed.
Excellent. You know, look, we're Tesla owners, right? We're used to pre-ordering things and waiting a boatload of time for some of us, right?
Yeah,
some models now available at the store, so depends on the model.
I remember the year late Elon time, and for our production, typically we're consistently about a month late. That's kind of the furthest we go.
Excellent. All right, so I'm going to look at chat and see if there's any questions for us. Hold on a sec.
Oh dang, he's got his still in the new packaging.
Oh wait, let me mute here. Hold on here. Okay.
Thanks, Will.
All right.
All right. So,
switching my camera to the computer here.
my camera here.
So Jason has no sound. All right. Anybody have questions?
Have questions
on the screen?
Dennis.
Yeah, Dennis, you're doubling up again. You might want to mute one of your cameras.
Your access.
All right,
fantastic.
I'm back on this one. Yep. Try. Oh, the camera's off, but my audio is on. Maximum number of active video and screen sharing feeds have been reached. Apparently, there's a maximum. All right. First, anybody with a question? Oh, excellent. Anybody? Bueller. I'm just going to pick randomly. Will, you were
Somebody-
one of the first ones. Anything you want to?
What's the most difficult aspect of starting a company? Thankfully, it's actually filing an LLC is not super hard. Just use LegalZoom. I would say the harder aspect of building a business is the cycle from initial capital investment to getting enough return that the machine starts running itself. And with the Adventures of Starman, that's taken about 2 years to get to a point where I'm not having to constantly pour like a lot of capital into it. Like it's almost to the point now of being self-sustaining, not profitable, but self-sustaining. And that is a fantastic place to be because most businesses and projects don't even make it there. So I'm really excited to be about to be hitting that point.
Okay.
Yeah. How's the start? Go ahead.
What's up with my QC once again on the Model Y? Okay, that's a different question. That's not you, Eli.
Yeah,
All
I
right,
heard
so-
in the quarter QC on Model Y was pretty bad, and from what my guess is they just had to get cars out, so they just dealt with it, and they just did what they had to do, and some people are suffering because of that.
So if you want to unmute yourself and ask the question directly, because this is a meetup rather than a webinar, go ahead and do that. We're up to Stuart's question. Stuart, if you want to unmute, that's fine. But the question is, are you selling the helmet?
So this helmet that I just flashed briefly is actually cast out of foam. That is a very expensive, time-consuming process. Actually worked with for my friend Starman, actually worked with a Hollywood FX studio to have the suit and helmet made, and it was ungodly expensive. So I have there's a new helmet coming that will be ready within a week. It's actually 3D printed, like it's exact spec match to the SpaceX Starman helmets. That type of thing to actually do at high level of detail is very expensive too. Like if you were actually to be sold based upon the time and materials that it costs a person to make it, they'd have to go for like $5,000. Like literally, like it took the person making it for me. It's taken them months and months and a ton of material. At some point in the future, there may be the ability to mass produce these and have them sold, but the demand's going to have to be a lot higher than it is today before the economics will really work out. But the goal is to get there. There's actually something exciting coming though. For Halloween, it looks like we're on schedule to actually have Starman suits available in kid sizes. We're currently working with a couple manufacturers on working out final design and fabrics and stuff, but it looks like we will have that in time for, unfortunately, what will probably be stay-at-home Halloween, but your kids will have the option to dress up as Starman if they want to.
What about a Starman's long sleeve shirt? That should be a quick way to just put it in. Just a few of the things that are on it.
Yeah, that's a good idea, actually. When winter comes around. Somebody made a Starman design looking hoodie, and I bought one and tried it out, and it wasn't fit. It wasn't made to fit right for really US sizes, but I think Tim Dodd actually, he sells one of those as well. Yeah, they're pretty cool.
Okay. Next question. Am I missing this? Looks like, where did you have the suit made? I guess the same thing, but I think you've answered that already.
Yeah.
David, Elon's brain. Have you had a tour of SpaceX? And if so, do you get to see the suit room?
So I have had a few tours of SpaceX. Got lucky enough to have, like, it's been a while now, but I did have a couple of tours of SpaceX. I did see the suit room, and I got to see some of the iterations of the suits back in middle 2019. I can't remember exactly where it was, but okay, there's a funny story from one of my tours at SpaceX that I don't think I've told anyone. So I was going back a second time. I was taking a mentor of mine. He's the former deputy director of Sandia National Labs, a big government guy, career DOE, DOD, loves tech. And I got the opportunity to take him on a tour with one of my friends at work there. And we'd take him out front to go see the rocket. And there was a car that I happened to notice as we were walking past, parked in Gwen Shotwell's space. There's a row right in front of SpaceX where, all the executives get to park, including Elon. So we go out, see the rocket, and we're walking back, and I see some scruffy looking engineer guy leaning against Shotwell's car. So as we approach and get close, I blurt out, "Who's this scruffy looking guy?" And the scruffy looking guy wearing his death metal t-shirt, looked like he hadn't showered in 3 days, looks at me and starts laughing. It was Elon. And I just panicked. Like I don't even know what words came out of my mouth after that. And like he started busting up. We said hi real quick, but then we got rushed out of there because his personal bodyguard didn't know who we were and didn't want us anywhere near him. So my friend rushed us out, but there's something that happened later. Was the bodyguard texted her and said, "Hey, who the hell were those people? Why did they stop? Like, because you're not supposed to do that around Elon." And she explained who we were and like the Starman thing and all that stuff. And he texted her back and was like, "Oh, you should have told me. You guys could have came in and hang out with them." Like, you never should have told me that. It's like, you never should have told me that. That was a once in a lifetime thing that will never happen. But yeah, that was pretty cool. I'll tell you what, one of the most impressive things seeing in SpaceX, aside from the sheer grandeur and like just how beautiful it is in there, like it's this perfectly white, sterile, beautiful rocket lab, is the machine that they have for 3D printing with titanium powder, like making rocket parts. They're so far ahead in thinking about things that they're like, look, whatever these things that we're building these things out of now, we need to be able to 3D print these parts out of titanium powder, because how else are we going to maintain and repair and build these ships on Mars? Like, they are so all in for going to Mars that even the stuff they're building for just for getting stuff from here to orbit is designed with Mars in mind. And nobody else in the world is doing this. NASA is not doing this. This is purely SpaceX. So like, I'm so excited about SpaceX and so supportive of what they're doing. And I really am uninterested in what anybody else is doing, because from what I've seen out there, they're the only one who really has the potential to be the future of not even the US, but really like humanity's space program.
So low Earth orbit stuff doesn't excite you?
You mean Blue Origin?
Yeah, or what's the name of the other one? So Rocket Lab, that has the mission control that looks all black like they're the Empire.
Oh, I do like their design. I mean, look, there's good business to be done there, but you're not going to really get us. You're not going to get humanity off this planet with it.
Yeah, well, the last launch from those guys didn't make it all the way up, so.
No, sadly, orbit's hard.
I guarantee their
Launch
lab
rockets,
does
right?
not, no, their lab does not look a thing like SpaceX at all. I mean, same with you, same with me. That titanium 3D printing lab was amazing. It's just, but we didn't get to see the spacesuit room. That was off limits to us.
I think we got lucky that we got to. I think it's who I was with. She was high up enough that she was able to just do it. But yeah, I mean, we couldn't, like, of course, people always ask, can you take photos? And I'm like, if you even pull out your phone, I'd probably be flat on the ground with undercover agents on top of me so fast it wouldn't even be funny.
Exactly.
Yep, no, that's a pretty protected space.
It's pretty crazy too, because like you could go wide up and touch stuff if you wanted to. Like it's not like corned off. There's not walls. Like, don't get me wrong, there's sections of the building that you can't even get to because clearly there's government and other projects. But the main floor of the lab, there's just these little lines of tape that like you could walk across. If you do at your own risk. But like technically, you could probably get a hand on something before they shoot you.
Yeah, well, they put tape on the ground too. I think it's a factory, right? So they got to have the flows to making the rockets and stuff.
Yep.
But no, I remember when I did my tour, they had the capsules for they just for the supply mission. That wasn't for people yet.
Oh wow, that's awesome. Yeah, I got to see the Dragon capsule actually while it was like a couple different stages of assembly inside the factory. Because yeah, that was like open and viewable too. Yeah, it was wild. It was wild to look at. Like, and the amount of intricacy in like tiny little like pipes and the amount of like tubing they have to custom machine. Like, it's really hard to appreciate what all goes into these things until you see it. And there's a lot happening under the hood.
Yeah. So Jeff asked the question: how's the suit holding up?
There's been more than one at this point. The first one got beat up pretty well. Still exists. Still useful for doing outdoor shoots and stuff. There's actually a music video coming out sometime, I don't know when. It got delayed because of COVID, but Starman was in a music video. It was shot out in the desert, and it's obviously going to be a Mars-type scene. And like, so the old suit is super useful for stuff like that and super high temperatures and places where it might get further damaged. But We're on Gen 2 of the suit, and probably within a year there'll be Gen 3.
Awesome. And Lydia asks from St. Louis, is your background in writing comics?
My background is in none of this. I've never written anything prior to this, never produced anything like this. I had no idea what this was going to cost. I didn't know anything. Never published a book. I don't even like reading physical books. I like audiobooks. I have a hard time focusing on things that I'm looking at. Now with these type graphic novel type things, it's easier because there's images, but like this is so not me, but I had to do this because I believe the mission and the potential of this is just way too important.
Excellent. Now, another question was, any plans on putting the Starman on Kindle as a digital distribution?
I've gotten this question a number of times. There will never be a digital version of these, and the simple fact is the way that the story and the art comes across when you can like physically hold it in your hand, the way the art looks on this incredibly 105-pound thick cardstock, a screen just doesn't do it justice. You know, I see the art all through production and it looks great, but then when I actually see it on paper, it's like, wow, this is really cool. And when I look at it on a computer screen, I don't feel that way. And I like for this to have the impact that I'm going for and inspire people that I want, that in the way that I want it to and why I'm doing this, it has to have that delivery. And unfortunately, putting it on a Kindle screen or a digital screen, it just doesn't have the impact. And the other side of it too, these things are very expensive to make. And honestly, at a digital price point, people just aren't going to be willing to pay the same cost that will actually be required to actually fund its development. So between the two, no plans whatsoever for a digital version. However, there will be more animations, and those will obviously be consumed purely digitally.
Yeah, it's like the one we sent out to the club members for the announcement and stuff, the one on YouTube that you did, right?
Oh yeah, so that worked out really awesome. So we took a scene from episode 2, Big Oil Strikes Back, where Starman docks with the ISS and some chaos ensues. I won't give anything away for those of you who haven't seen it. We got that done just in time to release right at the moment that Bob and Doug in the Crew Dragon capsule docked with the ISS. So the timing of that was like, it's just perfect. Like literally my animators got it back to me like 15 minutes before I released it, and Bob and Doug like were just docking right then. So the timing of that was incredibly fortuitous. There's going to be a pretty cool animation coming. It's going to be timed with the release of the next season of Mandalorian. So get ready for a crossover with Starman and the Mandalorian. This is a total short that has nothing to do, that it's standalone, but there's something pretty fun coming there. It's already done. We're just waiting to release it till that happens.
Now you got to watch out. Disney's been really keen on stopping anything that has the child on it. So make sure that Baby Yoda's not on there. So
the child is in it. The good news is though, there's no sellable thing here. It is literally just pure play content. So we're saying that'll happen as a copyright strike. There's no money to be gained since there is no product being sold. But yeah, it's I know they've been tight with the child.
So Stuart has a question: how close to being one of the actual suit is it? So your friend Starman, how close to realistic is the physical suit?
The details are almost completely exact to Starman's suit. So SpaceX has made some changes to the suit and the helmet since then, but those don't matter because that's not the one that Starman's up in space wearing. I would say at the moment, the only thing that isn't identical is the helmet isn't 3D printed, but that's about to be replaced here in a week or so. I think besides that, it's all the same.
Excellent. Next question is from Sally. So, if given the opportunity, would you take Starship to Mars?
I am never going to Mars. So, I very much want to see humanity. That's a great question, by the way, Sally. So, I very much want to see humanity make it there. And I think there's a lot of brave explorers and pioneers that are going to be on the forefront and do that. But I like my comfortable life on Earth. I like my Tesla. I like being able to sleep in air conditioning. And to be honest, Mars is going to be Oregon Trail 2.0. I mean, we're talking about the most difficult conditions humanity will have tried to survive in. Radiation like no other, temperature fluctuations that you can't survive in the day or survive at night, and then you can't breathe the air. I mean, it's gonna be brutal. Like, the people they send are gonna be extreme survivalists. Now, that said, it is absolutely probably my number 2 life goal to, in my life, step foot on the moon. That's a bit of a moonshot. There's a lot involved in that happening. Even in my lifetime, even when I'm older, that's going to still be very expensive, but will be an option. But I think more probably my goal is to at least make it to orbit, which even Virgin Galactic is offering, $50,000 seats on their Virgin Galactic plane whenever it flies. Look, if I have to cash out my retirement and take a chunk of it for that, I will. I don't care. I have to get to orbit at least. Ideally the moon. But if I end up on Mars, something in my life went terribly wrong.
Yeah, I mean, Virgin Galactic isn't exactly doing orbital flight though, so something like a starship hop around the moon would be awesome. But I'd do anything to go to Mars. I'd be there in a second. I really would. If it was one way and you're going to die on Mars, I'd be there.
That's amazing. See, people with your attitude, that mindset that we need, because the first people who go, it's gonna be a one way. And the chance that they even survive that one way to get to do anything is not a high probability. So, no, I mean, major hats off for us. Those people who do will be heroes in all of human history, because what they're giving up. I couldn't imagine doing it. Like, I have a young daughter too. Like, I couldn't imagine saying goodbye to her forever. I couldn't do it. But I'm more proud of you, Sally, and those that can and one day will.
Thanks, Eli.
You bet. Great question. Thank you.
Oh, weird. If there's an echo, Raphael, I only have one mute mic open on mine, and only Sally and Eli's open, so I don't know where it's coming from. Steve makes a comment from New York State about adding a few AR Easter eggs in the comics. I think that's a great idea.
AR Easter eggs. Hey, are you on chat so you can explain what exactly? Because there are some Easter eggs, but AR Easter eggs. Like, how would I do that?
Hey, Steve, why don't you unmute yourself?
Yeah. What are you thinking?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Something where you could point your. Sorry, I hear a little echo also. Something where you could point your phone at the comic and actually see something on the display of your phone.
Oh. Yeah, message me offline on one of the platforms, and let's get more into that. I think that's a cool idea. I don't really know technically how to execute on that, but if you know more about it, that'd be fun to do.
Sure. Perfect. Thank you.
So Will asks if there's a copyright on Starman from SpaceX or Elon or a related company, or do you own that, or is that a risk that's just there?
Hopefully I never end up in a lawsuit with Elon Musk and have to find out. So this is a very complicated aspect of this. So Starman as a thing is a certified celestial object, and from that aspect, it makes it in the public domain. Now, so that aspect SpaceX or Elon doesn't own. Now, what I've done with it and created a character with it is, like, the Starman character that I've created is copyrightable to me. And it was copyrighted to me on the moment of publishing. Any of the use of SpaceX IP, yeah, it's messy. It's super messy. So there is no affiliation with Tesla or SpaceX. Elon does know about it. He likes it. And basically, kind of Elon's whole approach to this thing is he is not big on going after people for IP stuff. And especially with SpaceX, so long as what they're doing is in good faith, they've given kind of open license to this. And actually, on the SpaceX website after the Starman launch, they had a specific statement about that all of this is available to you so long as it's done in good faith. And, promoting the cause of making humanity a multi-planetary species is kind of Elon's main mission, which I am absolutely promoting. So, no, there is nothing contractual with them. There is something I'm working on that in the future I think will actually be brand licensed with SpaceX. It's going to be something secondary to the comic universe. I won't say anything about what that is yet because it's a huge undertaking. It's going to take a lot of capital to do. But at the moment, there is nothing official. Although Elon did sign a copy of episode 1 for me, which if I ever end up in court, I'm going to say, see, he signed off on it.
Oh, do you have that readily available to show off?
It's actually framed in like museum quality glass in my office, out of sunlight, sealed from oxygen. Like, it's already in my will that like my kids are not allowed. My daughter, at least, is not allowed to sell it. They can either keep it or donate it to the future Elon Musk museum.
That's awesome. But that's better than those fake sticker Elon Musk signatures that people, used to get excited when you see it like on a car when you're supercharging. I was like, oh no, it's just a sticker. I'm like,
Yeah, my goal is to someday I hope to get the inside my dash signed by Franz and Elon, and when that happens, I'm going to have it laminated and it's never leaving.
never selling a car either at that point, I guess.
No, and I should probably not do it to this car. So I swore when I got this car that this was going to be like my last Tesla for 10 years. And then they've been teasing me with Plaid, and I already know it's going to happen. It's going to happen. When Plaid comes out, I'm going to have to upgrade. I'm sorry. I want maximum power. I have so much fun with it. Launch control ludicrous is so unbelievably addicting. And it's really fun too to be able to share that with people with Tesla for the first time, because like it's, even if they've been in supercars, it's unlike anything they've ever experienced. So especially as being somebody who travels around as much as I do and shares Tesla as much as I do, it's really nice to have their fastest car.
So speaking of travel and distance and stuff, since you've got the Raven and the 100, it's what greater than it's 100D or whatever it is at this point. What's the farthest trip you've taken? I mean, my Tesla adventure, I know you guys have taken over the supercharger at Kettleman that one time, and you did a few other things. But personally, what's your longest trip?
Since having this car, I think my longest trip is probably 800 miles. It's been a little limited due to COVID happening this year. So a trip that got delayed now until March or April of 2021 is I'm going to be doing the Tour de Tesla Part 2. So in 2018, I went to Europe, spent an entire week, 7 countries, 7 days, sleeping in the back of a Model S the entire trip. So the 2020 trip, which is now going to be 2021, the plan was I was going to be driving from Fremont to New York, whenever it happens, we're going to organize Tesla owners events with Tesla owners clubs along the way, and then my car is going to be shipped from New York to the UK, and then I'll drive my car across Europe for 2 weeks, doing what I did in 2018, but even better. And one of the interesting things about that, which a lot of people are like, "Oh my God, you can't supercharge," but the whole point is going to be that with a Raven Model S and the range you get on that you can do Europe as a vacation, even on level 2 supercharging, and it's not a problem. And if you can do level 2 supercharging and not even Tesla supercharging at the 150 kilowatts or 250 kilowatts, then it really drives home that electric is not a problem with range anxiety. So the big trip I had planned for this year, again, delayed. It was going to be like over 6,000 miles, but I'll be doing that next year.
Well, you can actually bring a CHAdeMO adapter. I mean, they do have a pretty good deployment of CHAdeMO still. I mean, until they start abandoning them. They do have a CCS adapter, but that requires a non-North American car. So
yeah,
that's kind of a challenge.
Yeah, it kind of sucks that you guys have got lumped with the Tesla adapter. Like us in Australia here and most of Europe, we've got the CCS/CCS2 on the Tesla Model 3, which really opens up the charger network for us compared to what you guys have got in America. So yeah, it's sad that Tesla hasn't done that for you guys.
Yeah, I'm now annoyed. Again, I never planned to take my car to Europe, but now that I am and want to, it's frustrating. And they do make an adapter that somebody third party made that you can get the Europe CCS to charge an American car, but the only person I know of that actually used it and reported on using it, he got banned from supercharging for life within 24 hours when Tesla detected it. So I do not recommend using that option, because if you get banned for life from Tesla supercharging, good luck.
Yeah, that's not good. I remember the guys that did the 80-day race the past few years, they had some adapters, but they were allowed to do so. I mean, it was not supported, but they didn't get banned either. But no, that's been a couple of years now since they've done the 80-day race around the world. So
I think in those early days, Tesla was a little more inclined to look the other way for people really promoting what they were doing. But I think now, the liability aspect just outweighs the benefits.
Yeah, well, things changed when that guy with the Model 3 took it to Europe.
UUZ, don't remind me.
Yeah, so that's
Yeah, but
part of the
but that really brings to light that we really need a global standard on charging plugs. It's what we have at the moment is a joke. You know, back in the old days of ICE cars, you didn't pull up to a petrol station or a gas station, to you guys, sorry, and you know, not be able to plug it in, like not be able to put the nozzle in your tank. So we really need that global standard so that people can go from country to country. I mean, for us in Australia, we're locked in water, so it's not going to happen for us. But, you know, certainly for Europe and places like that, you need that standard.
Agreed.
So Jeff has a question on the chat. How did you arrange to launch with Andy Allo?
So I'd actually known Andy for a while, actually well before Upload. It's a very good friend of mine's sister. And randomly just kind of came up that she had never been in a Tesla. And I'm like, wait, she's Mrs. Hollywood? She hasn't been in a Tesla? How is that possible? So one of the times when she came to town recently, it's like, all right, we got to make it happen. And I actually have a full 15-minute video that I have to edit and put out. But when she first got on it, I'm telling her all about it. She was like, no, I'm not going to like this. And like, so we're talking about it. She's all freaking out. She's like, no, I don't like roller coasters. I'm like, uh-oh, like you're in trouble. Like, that's my question, right? That's the test question. How do you feel about roller coasters? And if they say, oh, they're good, I like them, I'm like, okay, it's fine. But if they're like, I'm scared of them, I'm like, you might want to get out right now. But then when we launched, man, she was like, she's buying one. Like she's in the process of selling. I think she bought like a Mazda or something sports car. She's selling it to get a performance Model 3. And it was funny too. So like after that video came out and she retweeted it and all that stuff, a number of her friends down in LA as well, actors and stuff, like, were like, oh, I've never driven one. Can you take me on a ride? I'm like, bro, just go buy one. Like, what are you doing? So when I actually come down this weekend, I've got to go meet up with a number of people and take them on launches. I guarantee you they're all going to be very soon Tesla customers, because that's just what happens. You get in this thing, you experience it, and it's over.
Yeah, butts and seats, man. That's what it takes to get them going. So did she at least use your referral code, Eli?
She's going to, yeah. Yeah, she's selling her car right now. So once she sells it, oh, yeah, no. I told her we're not friends anymore if she doesn't.
Well, do you have to base it on your Raven? Didn't you get the supercharging included anyway?
This is the one sad part. I bought it immediately when they announced it. And it wasn't until a month later that they made it that Ravens got unlimited supercharging again. So for a couple months, they took away limited supercharging for new Model S's and X's. But then on July 1st, after Q2, they brought it back. So I do not have unlimited supercharging, unfortunately. I did have a decent number of miles because I got a good number of referrals in that period that each referral was worth 5,000 miles of supercharging. So I still have a few thousand left. But honestly, it just makes it easier when I do upgrade to Plaid that I'm not saying goodbye to unlimited supercharging.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's not a sustainable model to keep adding that on. I mean, the energy should be paid by the users.
I thought they added on for way longer than they should have, but clearly they needed to boost sales and they had reasons for it. But I think one of the things that Tesla did was really smart is now that they said that once they buy a car back from you, it will lose unlimited supercharging. So one of the ways Tesla has the ability to get these unlimited supercharging cars off the road is when an owner comes in to buy their new car, to get a new car, Tesla takes it from them on trade-in. And now when that Tesla resells that car, unlimited supercharging is gone. So for Tesla's incentive is to avoid them private party selling so they can end the amount of cars out there having unlimited supercharging. So I think they'll be able to cut it down over time.
Well, it also hurts for those of us with older cars. I mean, I've got a D-Pack 2013, and it doesn't go past 90 kilowatts much anymore. I mean, it might hit 100 and then taper off really quickly, but that's part of the chemistry of aging of the EV. So, kind of goes with that.
And those older batteries aged faster. They could never charge to a same degree, even when they were new. There's different wiring involved. So just recently, Tesla updated the wiring in the S and X. They're thicker cables now, and they can actually charge up to 250 kilowatts versus my Raven, although they say it can charge to 200, I've never seen past 184. But they actually have made some hardware improvements outside the battery to actually enable it to go to 250. So, I mean, Tesla knows what they're doing. They're a technology company, and like anything, like this, when I got the iPhone 11 and I compared it to the iPhone 8 that I had, it would be like, it's stupid. Like, I have the iPhone 11 and now I'm with it. And when the next really crazy camera comes out in a year or two, I'll get that too, because high quality photos matter to me. So they're going to get people to keep upgrading. Absolutely.
I went iPhone 6 to iPhone 11, so I wait a while. That's why I got a 2013S, 2017 3, right? And then 2008 Roadster beforehand. We wait a little bit before we get the next one.
So it'll be what,
next one.
Cybertruck or 2022 Roadster?
Cybertruck. I mean, I can't see myself spending 200 grand on one car. We'll buy 4 of them or 3 of them, but not one.
Makes sense.
So Raphael has a question. Raphael, you're up.
Yeah. Hey, Eli. I'm hooked on the whole Cybertruck thing, and I was wondering because Cybertruck seems like it's such a good fit for the Adventures of Starman and the whole Mars scene. I've seen some crazy renders from people online and some really cool stuff, right? And being, the adventure guy that you are, just like me, I've done so many long road trips, and I'm actually sure that I'm getting a Cybertruck. Are you planning on getting one and doing something with it, and the whole your business basically?
Yeah, so my Model S was wrapped in a brushed steel prior to the Cybertruck ever coming out, with the intent of it looking like SpaceX's Starship, which is the stainless steel rocket. And then a few months later, 6 months later, Tesla releases the Cybertruck, and it's like, this is exactly what I was trying to emulate. So definitely going to have a Cybertruck. I would love to get the performance one with 500 miles. Expecting by then I'm probably going to have already upgraded to the maximum plaid Model S. I think I'm going to have to just go with the all-wheel drive, the mid-range version, the 50K one, get full self-driving. But yeah, I've got to have a Cybertruck, man. And like, I've never been a truck guy, but the utility of what the Cybertruck brings for, like, I'm going to drive up to the mountains in the snow in the middle of winter and when there's a blizzard, because why not? And not to mention, come on, the look. That thing, I think Elon has secretly made a Mars rover that he's just selling to us.
Well, that's exactly the plan, right? If you look at all Elon's businesses, they add towards it. Boring Company was made because in order to live on Mars, you're not going to put your living habitation on the surface when the weather fluctuations are so bad. You got to go underneath. Use some of the strata to protect you.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, underground HABs in Mars is absolutely critical. Like, yeah, why fight nature? Why try and build shelters above ground when you can just dig holes underground? And when you're also the one advancing the boring technology, yeah, it just makes so much sense.
Yeah, I mean, you look at everything Elon's done, even down to you got the cars. You're going to have to use electric cars on Mars. You're not going to find fossil fuels there. You need to get there. SpaceX. You need to be able to live underground because, obviously, as you just said, you can't live above ground on Mars because of the radiation. So underground makes the most sense. Okay, dig tunnels. How do you get between colonies on Mars?
Cybertrucks.
Cybertrucks or the train thing that he made. What was it called? Hyperloop.
Yeah.
Yep.
And one of the other pieces that people doesn't get a lot of visibility because its primary focus is serving inner cities and kids that don't have access to real food is Kimball Musk charity Big Green. A lesser known portion of that is Kristiana Musk, and Kristiana Musk is an absolute space geek. She's a future of food person, and one of the things that she's heavily invested in working on is how we solve the food problem for space travel and how we grow food in space and so food is such an important part of living that we take for granted because we have meals with our friends and family and all the time at home. But what that translates to space is entirely different, and how we experience food because our taste buds swell. So Kimball and indirectly through Kristiana are heavily involved in that problem because food is going to be a tremendous issue when we get up there.
Yeah. So
thanks, Eli.
You bet, man.
Stuart had just a comment, Stuart, on the fact that you're telling people that what do you think about Stuart's idea that's on the chat about the Cybertruck can be built from parts of the Starship?
It's pretty funny. So when after SN4, I think it was 4 blew up, Tim Dodd asked Elon if he could have a Cybertruck made out of the steel. Elon actually said sure, but I think that's as positive confirmation as there can be that you could literally use a Starship to make a Cybertruck. And yeah, it absolutely makes sense. Like, let's refine these technologies that we're using for one thing, use them to make another, and now you have versatility of materials and components. Yeah, no, I think absolutely. I think you absolutely could. And vice versa. I think you could use parts from a Cybertruck to repair a Starship.
That explains why as long as you don't fly Franz up with it with a steel ball, you should be fine.
that was I honestly, there should be a lot more memes of making of what's his name, Chuck Norris memes about Franz, because that was, I mean, Franz came out on that stage looking so jacked. He's got the sledgehammer, and then he breaks the bulletproof window with a steel ball. God, that was such a legendary moment. And Franz is such a nice guy, too. For those of you who got to talk to him and meet him, he's the most down-to-earth dude you can imagine. Not full of himself at all, like loves talking about Tesla. Obviously, he can't talk a lot about his products because all the questions we have aren't public, but he's such a great guy. We're working to get him on the Tesla Geek Show soon so we can actually share more of his background, because I'd say most of us don't know enough about him.
So, Steve, why don't you unmute and share what you just put on chat and tell us a little bit about what you just said on there? I'm not familiar with Square Roots in Brooklyn.
Yeah, do it.
Steve.
Yeah.
Okay, let me unmute you. Steve, you're up. Steven Pilata. Oh, I guess he just wanted to chat with us. So, Eli, are you familiar with the people you mentioned, and they're making off-planet agriculture?
So I'm not familiar with Square Roots, not directly. I think I've seen the name. I think I've seen the name on social before, but no, I don't. I'm not familiar with that project. But that sounds fantastic. They're super heavy on data. Definitely planning for off-planet agriculture. Yeah, that's awesome that they're testing. Oh, there he is. Steven, can you tell us more about that? Do it.
There you go. You're unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, no, we can.
Okay, sorry, I had a little delay. Yeah, it's down in Brooklyn. I think they have about 10 shipping containers, and it's all they have like shelves and rows and all these RGB lights that they have going on. But the coolest thing about it all, they're able to emulate the same climate that they have anywhere in the world. So they look at something like basil, right? And they say, okay, where does basil grow the best? And I think I want to say it was Genoa, Italy, possibly. It was somewhere in Italy. And they can look at the data from that exact place and find out the humidity, find out the temperature, find out the type, the amount of sunlight they get, the time of from what 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. it gets this amount of sunlight, and then they're able to emulate that exact same setting inside of a shipping container. And it's mind blowing what they're able to do, and it's all database. But my suspicion is that Kimball is working on this, in preparation for some type of Mars base or something like that.
That right there is an incredible example of where we're at today that we weren't 50 years ago with Apollo. We didn't even, like, all these other underlying technologies that give us access to what you just said, the holy grail, which is data. We can now figure out things, and even smaller companies can do that we couldn't even dream of before. Like, even if that data even existed in a computer system, we could never pull it all together and analyze it. But now a lot of this data I think you're even talking about is accessible on the internet from open API feeds. So no, that's incredible what they're doing. And I'll have to ask them more about that and find out if Big Green is working with Square Roots, because it sounds like something probably happened.
The one other thing I want to add too that I thought was really cool, they also are heavy on not having to use any pesticides or excess, nitrates or anything like that, because of their ability to control the environment. They don't have to worry about any pests coming in. which is pretty cool. So there's no leakage of pesticides into the soil, into the water system, just floating around in the atmosphere. So it's pretty cool what they have. And then they do I think it's called hyper local delivery. So they're also lessening their carbon footprint by delivering to a Whole Foods on a bicycle that's in maybe a 1.5 mile radius, which is pretty cool too.
Interesting.
Wow. Well, I grew up in a time when space food was Tang and there's astronaut ice cream. So that's definitely something that's taken off quite further than where those things were.
Astronaut ice cream is still awesome. Every time I visit Kennedy Space Center, I come up back with a full bag of it in every flavor, and my daughter only gets half of it because I end up eating it along the way.
Just buy 4 times the quantity, and then you can give her a quarter, and you'd still be fine.
I need to do that next time. Bring a whole suitcase just for it.
Well, we've hit an hour. I don't know if you've got more time to spend with us, Eli. I budgeted about an hour for us to do this. So.
Yeah, no, I'm open. If you guys have more questions, I'm happy to answer. It's only the second time I've done this, and truly, guys, I'm honored to be on here talking about this. Getting to work on a project like the Adventures of Starman and bring real life Starman to life, and get to participate even in this artistic way and all this is really a dream, absolute life dream come true for me. And actually, yesterday something happened that like completely blew me away. Starman tweeted out a clip from Elon's after the Crew Dragon splashdown interview, and Elon actually retweeted it. It's actually still the top of Elon's Twitter feed. So that was pretty unreal to see that happen. But thank you guys, and I'm happy to answer more questions.
That was pretty awesome. I mean, just it's amazing how well SpaceX does in their production of video feeds for their launches, right? I mean, this past period, past 100 how many days I've been home. I mean, as you and I talked about, I really haven't been out, and it's been great to see all the stuff that SpaceX has been launching. I've been watching what Rocket Lab has been launching, but there's no comparison in the production value. And obviously, it's to win the hearts and minds. In order to get people to really fund and be extraplanetary, you need to get the people to buy in, right? And it's great.
It's one of the great differences, I think, between Leonardo da Vinci and Elon Musk. And I think those two are actually probably some of the smartest and most important people, I think, in human history, is that Elon Musk not only has the ability, but he also understands how to market. And if you're going to actually accomplish great things, you have to get a lot of people of all walks of life excited to support it, fund it, participate in it, work their faces off 7 days a week, 16 hours a day to make it happen. And with SpaceX, from even the design of the suits, like the amount of iterations they go through, because space needs to look cool and be sexy and look like something of the future. The design of the Dragon capsule, like even what the rockets look like on the outside. I mean, the way that the landing, the angle that they recorded the landing of the Falcon Heavy boosters was meticulously selected by Elon, so that they could, and even the way they did like the propulsion specifically, so they could get this video where you got to see them land like at the same time. Like all of this, Elon directly participated in, and having the perfect presentation, because if you want to get people excited and inspired, you have to give them something inspiring to look at. And SpaceX is excellent. It's actually funny to watch NASA and everybody else kind of start copying what they're doing and televising their launches and like all these other things, and actually trying to put more production value into it, because SpaceX has proven that a rocket launch can be prime time.
Yep. I mean, look, just the launch for Bob and Doug with the Model X's, the specialized Model X's to replace the old Astrovans, and they don't have to carry an air conditioner, portable air conditioner for them. You just plug into the car, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, that was an incredible, like, for people who wouldn't have known, it would just think, oh, that's a cool car. But understanding that both that car and this rocket and all of this was like chiefly engineered by the same guy, that was incredible. Like, sadly, that launch didn't get near as much coverage as it should have. But I think over the next few years, that's going to change.
Yeah, excellent. Well, one thing we didn't cover earlier, is what you and Anwar Beck are doing with the EV Geeks show. So, how do you find time to do all this stuff and that.
I'll sleep when I'm dead. So me and Anwar Beck run Tesla Geek Show. It's a Tesla community-focused podcast. It's on all the podcast apps, Spotify, and also now on YouTube. And we typically record once a week. We like to bring guests on from the community who have things to talk about what's trending, but just have a lot of fun with it because we are both like, it's funny, Anwar Beck's also a realtor, but the joke is that he's a full-time Tesla geek and a part-time realtor. But yeah, it's great. I really don't have time for that show, but like recording that is one of the highlights of my week. So I make it work and I wouldn't miss it for anything.
So as long as Matt doesn't hear that Anwar Beck is a part-time realtor, I think we're okay.
Yeah, no, Matt's a great guy. I unfortunately haven't got to hang out with them out there enough this year, but once things open back up, we're going to go out there again. I mean, it's the site of the new Tesla Gigafactory. It's coming to Austin.
Look, Austin sounds like a place to be. You and I were there in February, and it's
it's a fun city. It's a really fun city.
I think Tesla followed us because you and I were hanging out in Austin in the beginning of February. So
they saw we were there and fully charged, and they said they had to come, right?
They just figured, you know what, push it over the edge.
I know there was a lot of bluster when Elon was getting into it with Alameda County about not letting him open the factory. But I really do think Elon's going to be spending the majority of his time in Austin. I mean, this Gigafactory is going to have the biggest footprint of any factory Tesla's ever built. You guys have seen the land space; it's massive. It's a short it's a 30-minute flight away from his rocket manufacturing facility down near Boca Chica. I mean, Elon's near-term 5-year future, I think, is going to be primarily in Austin. I mean, he's selling all his houses in California, so I think he's going to be primarily a Texas resident. I mean, his newest cars are going to be coming out of Austin. Like Cybertruck is going to be a huge one that, as you guys know from Model 3 history, when Tesla's manufacturing a new vehicle, Elon is everywhere up and down that line. He knows the way everything works and often even sleeps on the factory floor. So I think Texas is going to be in Elon's near to mid future.
Look, financially speaking, it only makes sense, right? If he exercises the stock, it means one thing to take a loan on the stock like he was doing, but if he's ever forced to have to sell any of the shares to cover some of those loans, then that's income he's had. So he might as well skip the whole California income tax that we all have to pay.
And the way it works at the billionaire stage, they talk about if you borrow $100,000 from the bank owns you. But if you borrow $100 million from the bank, you own the bank. You have the type of capital lended from them that you actually have more leverage over them than they do over you. Unless there was some crazy catastrophic event that caused Tesla stock to plummet to a place that's unbelievable, I really don't see Elon having to do anything but loan against his shares until he needs to sell them for the Mars mission like he's planning. I mean, a lot of people don't realize guys like Bezos and Larry Ellison, these guys don't sell their shares. They all take out lines of credit and loans against the equity because there's no value in them giving up their equity when they can take $1 billion line of credit. Larry Ellison took $1 billion line of credit backed up by Oracle equity for 1% interest. He's got $38 billion in stock. So the bank's fine. They believe in Oracle stock value long term, and there's no reason not to. They're a titan of a company. And that's kind of the game. Yeah, these guys don't sell their shares unless they have to, and because it's a public event, right? Especially the company like Tesla. If Elon sold one share, you hear nothing for 3 months about how Musk no longer believes in the future of Tesla. So he can't, but you can loan against it. That's a totally acceptable vehicle. I think it could be 10 years before we see Elon selling any shares.
So you tweeted, talking about stock and Tesla stock and shares. One thing I remember seeing on a tweet from you a few weeks ago was right before expiration, I think maybe 2 or 3 days, you took a position on Tesla stock at 1,800. I mean, crazy.
So that one I was literally like, you know what? I've got one fighter. I'm betting on the guy in the red corner. I threw my money. That was a total gamble. That one did not work out. So I made pretty good money on Tesla options the previous few weeks. So my net I was still substantially up. But I decided, I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to buy an option call with a 3-day expiration because I knew Tesla was going to kill it on the numbers. They did. Unfortunately, ultimately, the next day, the tech sector got whacked really heavily. I think it was a result of China and the U.S. in embassy closing war, like U.S. made China close an embassy in Houston. China made U.S. close an embassy in somewhere, Shanghai. So tensions were rising with China, whack tech stocks. That option, I lost everything on that option. But that's all right. I'm up majorly net positive on Tesla. I bought some contracts at $1,500 calls at like $1,200 that cleared like 7x in 2 days. So like it was fine that I lost the one, but I wanted to have skin on the game on that earnings call because I really believed that Tesla had done it, and they did. The market just didn't play out in the way that I needed it to. But I will tell you, I have been out. I have not participated anything having to do with Nikola Motors. As you guys know, me and Anwar Beck have been extremely critical of these guys. And so has the rest of the world come out now as well. But today, actually, right near the bell, I bought a short position on Nikola that is going to make up for my losses of Tesla tomorrow morning.
Yeah, it's like down 7% in the after hours, right? After
17%.
17, yeah.
13%, okay.
They and it was so bad the amount of information they released. The JP Morgan analyst said, "Really? That's all you're going to give us?" To which the CEO of Nikola Motors said, "You're just going to have to trust us."
Oh, no. I saw the headlines at 7, so it's down even bigger. That's I don't know.
Probably a bad sign when
there's a place for hydrogen. I'm assuming there's a place for hydrogen elsewhere, right? It's in space travel or something. You got to figure out where that would come in, especially since the waste product is water. So you could use that when you're in a closed loop on traveling in space. But
well, here's the thing too: Elon and SpaceX are not using hydrogen; they're using methane. Methane is a far better fuel. Like the Starship Raptor engine is a methane rocket, and methane is going to be far easier for us to produce than hydrogen, actually, for rocket fuel. But the hydrogen thing, the problem with the hydrogen thing is the way they'll sell it is like hydrogen is the most abundant resource in the universe. And that's true. Hydrogen is abundant, but hydrogen in its own state is not accessible and available. You have to extract it from something else and then store it and then have a network to transport it and then burn it. And that's a much larger supply chain than just going from a solar cell or wind to a battery cell. And it's also the reason why, although NASA has made some rockets that use hydrogen, a lot of them don't, because there is some challenges with hydrogen, some substantial ones.
There's a lot of big issues with hydrogen and how it's made as well. It's not, at the moment, it's an extremely dirty fuel and expensive to produce. And I can't see how that can be scaled up to a level where it be anywhere near as cheap as just putting it straight into a battery.
Exactly. And let's say you even did figure out how to use it, make pure clean energy to produce it. The amount of energy you consume in storage and cooling and all those other things make it more expensive than gasoline. So,
I mean, hydrogen does have its place, I think, in heavy transport, such as shipping, maybe even a flight for long-haul flights. But it certainly has no place in small-scale transport, such as motor vehicles, trucking, etc. I think batteries have already gotten so far ahead. There's no way hydrogen can catch up.
No, and just fundamentally, it's an inferior solution. But there's a lot of big companies and big oil out there. They definitely want hydrogen to succeed. And the truth is, they don't really care about polluting the environment or not. They care about energy, having us required to buy energy from them. And as you guys know, none of us can put a hydrogen plant on our roof.
Yep.
But we can definitely put solar cells and charge our car. So long as they have us dependent on them to buy energy, any solution that requires us to be dependent on them for energy is one I'm fundamentally against, because we don't need to be. And solar/battery electric is already well ahead of it, and it's just getting better at an astounding rate.
Totally agree, and that's one of the biggest things that, you see these major oil companies, they're behind hydrogen for one reason, because it maintains the existing business model where you go and fill up somewhere and hand over money at a counter, and that's what they want to maintain. One of the biggest things about EVs, besides all the other benefits, health benefits, it's so much nicer to drive, etc., is that you can charge at home. That nothing beats that.
That's it. You can't fuel your car with hydrogen at your house. I want to get back. I want to go talk more on that one. But Steven said, would you consider taking the first trip around the moon with Yusaka Maezawa? He's looking for artists to join. I have tried to get copies of the Adventures of Starman to him. I've sent them to all his museums, like any address that I have. I just want him to see it because he's obviously about this space thing. I thought about it though, and I'm really not a good pick for that because his mission is to take people from mainstream culture who are not space oriented already and give them this experience so that they can then take that back into their mainstream art. And I'm by no means mainstream, and also I'm so on board with this whole thing already. I don't need to be convinced. So I don't think I would be a good.
You don't
fit.
want to add to the echo chamber?
Yeah, right. Like I'm already in. Like having me see the moon is not going to change my perspective more like enough that it's going to have a different on global pop culture. So, although I would love for that opportunity, I think people that are much more influential in the mainstream need to be selected. I mean that was another thing. When I saw that get announced, I couldn't believe it. Like this is such an important thing he's doing, and the influence that artists have in culture, musicians, painters, whatever, dancers, like that is going to be a really big push in getting a lot of people excited. Because these pop culture icons, a lot of people look up to them as heroes. And when these people are talking about space and how succeeding the moon and all this changed them, there's a whole lot of people who are going to hear that and have changed their mind about this entire thing. There's a lot of people out there right now who, and I've seen hundreds and thousands of retweets with this comment or comments to, that tweet by Starman saying that, oh, we don't need to leave. We need to fix Earth first before we think about leaving it. It's like, guys, there's only so much we can do. There's a lot of very powerful interests that have control of this Earth that have no interest but exploiting its resources. And if we're going to ensure humanity's survival long term, we can't just say fixing this one planet is our only solution. We have to get off it too. And not to mention, how cool is it to put together our collective efforts and do something insane like extending life 100 million miles off it. Like there's so many reasons to do it against the naysayers, but when these artists get involved in promoting that cause, it will have a big impact in turning public opinion in support of this instead of being somewhat neutral or negative.
So with your viewpoint on Mars and the like, I don't know if you watch how much science fiction you watch, but would you see yourself with humanity after Mars? Do you see it more like Star Trek, or do you see it like The Expanse?
Probably more like The Expanse, but it's hard to know because where we really end up or not depends on the rate of technological advancement in some of these areas. My guess is probably more like The Expanse, but again, it could be another alternative that we can't even predict.
Sure. Yeah, so it's a little darker in it then, I guess.
Yeah.
So Eli, in addition to what Dennis just said, where do we see Starman after Mars? Where does he go?
So we haven't done anything with Mars yet, but before Mars, we're actually going to do. There's going to be a story that deals with the upcoming missions to the moon. So it's going to be the moon. We're going to go in sequential order and how this is actually going to happen. The moon base and then Mars. After that, I'm going to have to wait and surprise you guys. We got an episode called, what is it called? It's like Into the Looking Glass or something like that. I don't think that's the right name, but we know where he's going after that. And
Thanks so much.
It might be interdimensional.
Ooh. Stay tuned.
Is that the right way of describing it? Yeah, interdimensional. Yeah.
Dark Mirror version for Stuart. Go back to
there's going to be some aspects of that story that are going to have some. You remember how there's like in the Flash, there was like the Reverse Flash of this mirror universe type thing that was kind of like the Flash equivalent of Dark Mirror. There may be some elements of that to it. If you guys have read Ender's Game and that series, when you consider about the ways that they did that, like beyond light speed travel and the way the consumption of energy just magically happens across the other side of the universe, we're going to do something with imagining if you could actually look into what's happening on the other side of that.
Excellent. Well, let's see. We're at 7:20. Any other questions? There's a lot of other cool comments on chat here. 2020 is definitely an alternative timeline. I can't agree enough with
Can we
you
get
there,
off
David.
this alternative timeline? It's getting old.
Yeah, can we have a reboot? It's just,
Yeah. Just plug back into the Matrix reboot. I'm fine with that. You should include a reference to the Culture series by Ian M. Banks. You know, that is one. Oh yeah, of course I still love you. Oh yeah, they will definitely be
Ian
references.
M. Banks' Culture series is one of the best sci-fi series out. I know it's a huge influence on Elon Musk. Hence the reason you've got, of course, I Still Love You. Just read the instructions as drone ships. I'd love to see an Easter egg in your cartoons or your comic series referencing that. It'd be awesome.
We haven't done those yet, but we will. I promise.
Awesome.
We have referenced Foundation and Isaac Asimov, but we have not done Ian Banks yet. And we've of course referenced Hitchhiker's Guide, but we have not yet done. Yeah, of course I Still Love You.
excellent. Any other questions? Well, Eli, thank you for staying over for the overtime period. It's been such a fun time to have here. Hope everybody enjoyed themselves in this format. Obviously, you know, like I said, I wanted it in a conference call format so people can jump in if they wanted to talk. So everybody still does the webinar thing and just type their questions. So maybe we'll get people not so shy and get on camera more often. Thanks for being the first guy up.
Yeah, and guys, if any questions come up for you guys and you want to ask me, I'm accessible on Twitter at Eli Burton _. You can hit me on Instagram at My Tesla Adventure. Facebook is a little harder because I don't check the messages
Thanks
often.
so much. Very,
My Tesla
very,
Adventure,
very
Adventures of
good.
Starman. Yeah, if you guys have any other questions, hit me up. And yeah, if you already ordered Operation Darkstone, thank you so much. If you haven't already and want to, you can go to operationdarkstone.com. And there's still a discount on pre-orders, which will end in a few days since it's about to be in print.